What if I told you that beneath your feet, buried under millions of years of sediment and stone, lie the remnants of a civilization so advanced it makes our modern world look primitive? What if everything we think we know about human history is just the latest chapter in a much longer, far more incredible story? Today, we're diving deep into one of the most mind-bending questions humanity has ever asked. What if Earth once hosted a high-tech civilization millions of years before humans even existed? We're not talking about ancient aliens or lost continents from mythology. We're talking about the possibility that intelligent beings, perhaps even earlier versions of humans, developed technology that rivaled or exceeded our own, only to vanish so completely that we're only now finding traces of their existence. By the end of this investigation, you'll see evidence that will make you question everything you thought you knew about our planet's past. We'll explore artifacts that mainstream archaeology refuses to acknowledge, examine geological anomalies that suggest massive industrial activity in Earth's distant past, and dive into scientific theories that could rewrite the history books. But first, let me show you just how much proof already exists that something incredible happened here long before recorded history began. The story starts with something called the Silurian Hypothesis. Named after a fictional alien race from Doctor Who, this isn't science fiction. It's a legitimate scientific paper published in 2018 by NASA's Gavin Schmidt and astrophysicist Adam Frank. These aren't fringe researchers or conspiracy theorists. These are respected scientists asking a simple but profound question. If an industrial civilization had existed on Earth millions of years ago, would we even be able to detect it? Their conclusion was unsettling. Most traces of our current civilization would disappear within a few million years. Buildings would crumble, metals would corrode, and even our plastic waste would eventually break down. The only signs that might remain would be subtle changes in the geological record, unusual isotope ratios, strange mineral deposits, or sudden spikes in certain chemicals. And here's where it gets interesting. We're finding exactly these kinds of anomalies in Earth's ancient rock layers. Let's start with the physical evidence, because there's more of it than you might think. In 1851, workers in a Massachusetts foundry discovered a metallic bell-shaped vessel embedded in solid rock. The vessel showed intricate floral designs and was composed of an unknown metal alloy. The rock it was found in was dated to over 100,000 years old. In 1885, an iron cube was found in a block of coal in Austria. The coal was from the Tertiary period, making it at least 25 million years old. In 1912, employees at an electric plant in Oklahoma found an iron pot inside a chunk of coal that was 312 million years old. Now, skeptics will tell you these are hoaxes or misidentified natural formations, but the list goes on and on. Perfectly spherical metallic objects found in South African mines, embedded in rock that's 2.8 billion years old. A nail discovered in Peru inside rock that predates known human civilization by millions of years. An aluminum gear found in Siberian coal that shouldn't exist because aluminum wasn't discovered until 1825, yet the coal was formed 300 million years ago. Each individual case might be explainable, but when you look at the pattern, something much more intriguing emerges. We're finding manufactured objects in rock layers that span hundreds of millions of years. Either there's a massive conspiracy to plant fake artifacts across the globe, or we're looking at evidence of technology that existed long before mainstream science says it was possible. But physical artifacts are just the beginning. The real evidence might be written in stone, literally. Geologists have identified dozens of mysterious formations that seem to defy natural explanation. Take the perfectly carved tunnels found beneath Romania. These tunnels are machine-precise, with walls so smooth they appear to have been created by advanced boring equipment. Yet they're found in rock layers millions of years old. Similar tunnels have been discovered in Slovakia, Ecuador, and Peru, all showing the same impossible precision. Then there are the vitrified forts scattered across Scotland and other parts of Europe. These ancient stone structures show signs of having been subjected to temperatures exceeding 1000 degrees Celsius, hot enough to melt rock into glass. Some researchers suggest this could only have been achieved with advanced technology, possibly some form of directed energy weapon or industrial process that we're only now beginning to understand. The evidence extends beyond Earth's surface. In the 1962nd, Soviet deep drilling projects in Siberia uncovered something extraordinary. At depths of over 6 miles down, they found microscopic metallic spheres that appeared to be manufactured. These spheres were perfectly round and showed signs of having been created through an unknown industrial process. The rock they were found in was dated to over 2 billion years old, long before even complex life was supposed to exist on Earth. But perhaps the most compelling evidence comes from isotope analysis. When we burn fossil fuels or engage in nuclear technology, we leave behind very specific chemical signatures. These signatures can persist in rock and sediment for millions of years. And guess what? We're finding these exact same signatures in rock layers that date back hundreds of millions of years. The Permian extinction event, which occurred 252 million years ago, wiped out over 90% of all life on Earth. For decades, scientists have struggled to explain what could have caused such a catastrophic event. The most popular theories involve massive volcanic eruptions or asteroid impacts. But some researchers are now proposing a different explanation: an advanced civilization that pushed their planet's ecosystem beyond its breaking point. The chemical signatures found in rock from this period show massive spikes in carbon dioxide, sulfur compounds, and heavy metals, exactly what you'd expect to see from large-scale industrial activity. There are also unusually high concentrations of rare earth elements, the same materials we use today in our most advanced electronics. Finding these concentrations in 252 million year old rock is like finding a smartphone in a medieval castle. Dr. Michael Rampino, a geologist at New York University, has been studying these anomalies for years. He's identified at least 7 major extinction events in Earth's history that show similar chemical signatures. Each event shows the same pattern: a sudden spike in industrial-type pollutants, followed by a massive die-off of species, followed by a long recovery period where new life forms evolve to fill the empty niches. This creates a chilling possibility. What if Earth has hosted multiple high-tech civilizations throughout its history? What if the pattern of rise, technological advancement, environmental collapse, and extinction has repeated itself over and over again? And what if we're just the latest civilization to walk this path? The implications are staggering. If previous civilizations existed, what happened to them? Did they destroy themselves through war or environmental collapse? Did they evolve beyond the need for physical existence? Or did they find a way to leave Earth entirely, heading for the stars while we remained behind, eventually forgetting they ever existed? Some researchers believe the answer might lie in our own DNA. Recent advances in genetic analysis have revealed that human DNA contains sequences that appear to be much older than our species. Some of these sequences show signs of artificial modification, as if they were deliberately engineered rather than naturally evolved. Could these be remnants of genetic engineering performed by a previous civilization? The more we dig, both literally and figuratively, the more evidence we find that challenges our understanding of Earth's history. Ancient maps that show land masses that shouldn't have been known to exist. Precision-cut stones that fit together without more still can't replicate. Massive vetar, using techniques artifacts that show signs of advanced metallurgy and manufacturing underground tunnel systems that span continents, processes. But here's the most unsettling part. If previous high-tech civilizations existed and then disappeared, what does that mean for us? Are we destined to follow the same path? Are we already repeating the same mistakes that led to their downfall? The evidence suggests that we might be. Climate change, environmental destruction, resource depletion. The same problems that might have destroyed previous civilizations are accelerating in our own time. The question becomes, are we smart enough to learn from the mistakes of those who came before us, even if we can barely detect their existence? This is just the beginning of our investigation into Earth's hidden history. In the next part, we'll explore the most shocking discoveries that mainstream science refuses to acknowledge, examine the possibility that some of these ancient civilizations might have achieved technologies that we're still struggling to understand, and investigate whether there might be survivors of these lost worlds still living among us today. Because if Earth really has hosted multiple high-tech civilizations throughout its history, then everything we think we know about our planet, our species, and our destiny might be completely wrong. And the implications of that revelation could change everything. The deeper we dig into this mystery, the more we realize that our current understanding of technology itself might be fundamentally flawed. What if the civilizations that came before us didn't follow the same technological path we're on today? What if they discovered ways to manipulate matter and energy that we haven't even imagined yet? Consider this. Every piece of technology we've developed is based on our understanding of physics and chemistry as it exists right now. But what if there are entire branches of science that we simply haven't discovered? What if previous civilizations found ways to work with natural forces that we're completely blind to? Take anti-gravity, for example. We think of it as impossible, something that belongs in science fiction. But what if it's not? What if the massive stone blocks at ancient sites like Puma Punku in Bolivia, some weighing over 130 tons and cut with laser-like precision, weren't moved using ramps and pulleys? What if they were levitated into place using technology that worked with gravitational fields in ways we don't understand? The precision of these cuts is beyond anything we can achieve today, even with our most advanced diamond-tipped tools. The blocks fit together so perfectly that you can't slide a piece of paper between them. They show no tool marks, no signs of the gradual shaping process you'd expect from primitive technology. Instead, they look like they were cut in a single, perfect operation by something far more advanced than anything in our current toolkit. But here's where it gets really interesting. Recent experiments in quantum physics have shown that gravity might not work the way we think it does. Scientists have discovered that under certain conditions, particles can be made to behave as if gravity doesn't affect them. If a previous civilization had mastered these quantum effects, they could have developed technology that seems impossible to us but was perfectly natural to them. This could explain some of the most puzzling archaeological discoveries on Earth. The perfectly round stone spheres found in Costa Rica, some over 8 feet in diameter and weighing 15 tons, all carved to within millimeters of perfect spherical geometry. The precision required to create these objects exceeds what we can achieve today, yet they're found scattered throughout the jungle as if they were mass-produced. Or consider the underground cities discovered in Turkey, like Derinkuyu, which extends 18 stories deep into the earth and could house 20,000 people. The excavation techniques required to create these massive underground complexes would challenge even our modern machinery, yet they were carved out of solid rock, using tools that mainstream archaeology claims were primitive. The ventilation systems in these cities are particularly baffling. They're designed with an understanding of airflow dynamics that rivals our modern engineering. Fresh air is circulated through miles of tunnels using principles that we're only now beginning to understand. How did ancient people, supposedly working with simple tools, develop such sophisticated knowledge of aerodynamics? But perhaps the most compelling evidence comes from metallurgy. We've found metal objects embedded in coal and rock that contain alloys we've never seen before. These aren't just random mixtures of metals. They show clear signs of deliberate engineering. The proportions are precise, the molecular structure is uniform, and the properties are unlike anything we can produce. In some cases, these ancient alloys are actually superior to our modern materials. They resist corrosion better, they're stronger under stress, and they maintain their properties under extreme temperatures. It's as if whoever created them had a more advanced understanding of materials science than we do today. This brings us to one of the most unsettling possibilities. What if we're not progressing forward technologically, but actually moving backward? What if each civilization that develops on Earth reaches a certain peak of advancement, then collapses, forcing the survivors to start over from scratch? Think about it this way. If our civilization collapsed tomorrow, what would remain after 1,000,000 years? Our computers would be dust. Our buildings would be rubble. Our books would be gone. The only traces might be some unusual chemical signatures in the rock layers, and maybe a few extremely durable artifacts scattered here and there. Future archaeologists might find a smartphone embedded in sedimentary rock and have no idea what it was or how it worked. This cycle of advancement and collapse might explain why human progress seems to happen in sudden leaps rather than gradual development. Agriculture didn't develop slowly over millions of years. It appeared suddenly about 10,000 years ago in multiple locations around the world simultaneously. The same pattern appears with writing, metallurgy, and complex mathematics. It's as if knowledge was being rediscovered rather than discovered for the first time. Some researchers believe this pattern might be encoded in our oldest myths and legends. Stories of golden ages, lost paradises, and fallen civilizations appear in cultures all around the world. These stories often describe beings with godlike powers who possessed advanced technology and knowledge. Most scholars interpret these as purely mythological, but what if they're cultural memories of real events? The Hindu concept of cyclical time describes 4 ages, with humanity currently living in the Kali Yuga, the age of darkness and ignorance. Before this came the Satya Yuga, an age of truth and enlightenment, where beings possessed incredible powers and lived for thousands of years. Similar cyclical concepts appear in Greek mythology, Mayan cosmology, and dozens of other ancient traditions. What if these aren't myths at all, but historical records passed down through oral tradition? What if they're describing real civilizations that rose to incredible heights of technological and spiritual development, only to fall into darkness, leaving behind only scattered survivors who preserved fragments of their knowledge in stories and legends? This possibility becomes even more intriguing when we look at the mathematical and astronomical knowledge embedded in ancient structures. The Great Pyramid of Giza, for example, encodes the exact value of pi to several decimal places. It also reflects the precise dimensions and proportions of the Earth itself. The builders somehow knew that the Earth was a sphere and had calculated its exact size to an accuracy that wasn't matched by modern science until the 18th century. The Antikythera mechanism, a complex bronze device found in a shipwreck off the coast of Greece, contains gear ratios that can predict the movements of the planets with stunning accuracy. It's been called the world's first analog computer, and its sophistication suggests a level of mechanical knowledge that historians claim didn't exist in ancient times. But perhaps the most mysterious discoveries are the ones that suggest these ancient civilizations might have understood energy in ways we're only beginning to explore. The Baghdad battery, a clay jar containing a copper cylinder and iron rod that produces electrical current when filled with acidic liquid, dates back over 2,000 years. Ancient Egyptian reliefs show what appear to be light bulbs, complete with electrical cables and power sources. These discoveries point to something that mainstream science has been reluctant to acknowledge: the possibility that consciousness and technology might be connected in ways we don't understand. What if advanced civilizations didn't just develop better machines, but learned to work directly with the fundamental forces that shape reality? Recent discoveries in quantum physics suggest that consciousness might play a direct role in shaping physical reality at the subatomic level. The observer effect shows that the act of observation literally changes the behavior of particles. If previous civilizations had mastered this connection between mind and matter, they might have developed technologies that worked through consciousness rather than mechanics. This could explain why so many ancient sites are associated with altered states of consciousness, meditation, and spiritual practices. What we interpret as religious ceremonies might actually have been technological operations that required specific mental states to function properly. The implications of this possibility are staggering. It would mean that technology isn't just about building better machines, but about developing human consciousness to work in harmony with natural forces. It would suggest that our current path of external technological development might actually be a primitive approach compared to what's possible. And if that's true, then the evidence of previous high-tech civilizations becomes even more compelling. Because if they were working with consciousness-based technologies, most of their tools and devices would leave no physical trace. They would exist in the realm of mind and energy, invisible to our current methods of detection. This brings us to one of the most profound questions we can ask. Are we alone in this search for truth, or are there others who know what really happened in Earth's distant past? And if there are, why haven't they revealed themselves? The answers to these questions might be closer than we think, hidden in plain sight in ways that will completely transform our understanding of reality itself. The answer to these questions might lie in something that most people walk past every single day without giving it a second thought. Street lamps, cell phone towers, power lines, and radio antennas. We assume these are all products of our modern technological age, but what if some of them aren't? In 1996, a Russian geologist named Dr. Valery Uvarov made a discovery that shook his understanding of technology. While examining ancient Sumerian tablets, he found detailed descriptions of devices that seemed to generate and transmit energy wirelessly. The descriptions were so specific that he was able to build working replicas using the ancient blueprints. These devices, which he called wands of Horus, produced measurable electromagnetic fields and seemed to affect human consciousness in predictable ways. But here's where it gets really strange. When Dr. Uvarov tested his replicas near certain ancient monuments, he found that the monuments themselves began to resonate at specific frequencies. It was as if the structures were designed to work together with these devices, forming a network that could transmit energy and information across vast distances. This discovery led him to examine other ancient sites around the world, and what he found was remarkable. Many of the world's most famous monuments, Stonehenge, the pyramids, Easter Island, Machu Picchu, all show signs of having been built with an understanding of electromagnetic principles that we're only now beginning to grasp. More importantly, they all seem to be positioned at specific locations that maximize their ability to tap into the Earth's natural energy field. The Earth itself generates a complex electromagnetic field, something scientists call the magnetosphere. This field is constantly fluctuating, creating currents and waves of energy that flow around the planet. If you knew how to tap into this field, you could potentially access unlimited clean energy without any of the environmental damage caused by our current power sources. Recent studies have shown that many ancient sites are built on locations where the Earth's electromagnetic field is particularly strong. These aren't random coincidences. The positioning is too precise, too consistent across different cultures and time periods. It's as if the builders had instruments to measure these fields and deliberately chose locations that would maximize their technological capabilities. This raises an uncomfortable question for modern science. If ancient civilizations really did understand these principles, why don't we? The answer might be that we've been looking at technology from completely the wrong angle. Our current approach to energy involves burning things, splitting atoms, or harnessing mechanical forces like wind and water. But what if there's a much more elegant solution? What if the Earth itself is essentially a giant battery, and all we need to do is learn how to plug into it? Nikola Tesla believed this was possible. His wireless power transmission experiments in the early 1900s were based on the idea that the Earth's electromagnetic field could be used to transmit electricity anywhere on the planet without wires. His Colorado Springs laboratory successfully transmitted power over distances of several miles, proving that the concept worked. But his funding was cut off, his research was suppressed, and his laboratory was destroyed. Tesla claimed that he had discovered the same principles that were used by ancient civilizations to power their technology. He believed that sites like the Great Pyramid were actually power plants, designed to tap into the Earth's natural energy field and distribute that power to other locations. His notebooks, which weren't released to the public until decades after his death, contain detailed drawings of devices that look remarkably similar to some of the mysterious artifacts found at ancient sites. But Tesla wasn't the only one who believed in this possibility. During World War II, both the Nazis and the Allies had secret research programs investigating what they called free energy technologies. These programs were based on discoveries made at ancient sites around the world, particularly in Tibet and South America. The Nazi Ahnenerbe, a research organization dedicated to investigating ancient mysteries, sent expeditions to Tibet, Peru, and other locations where they believed advanced technologies had been developed in the distant past. They were looking for what they called vril energy, a force that they believed could be harnessed to power incredible machines. While most of their research remained classified, declassified documents from the 1972nd revealed that they had indeed discovered artifacts that seemed to demonstrate advanced technological principles. Some of these artifacts were brought back to Germany and studied by teams of scientists and engineers. The results of these studies reportedly influenced the development of several advanced German weapons systems, including early jet engines and rocket technology. After the war, many of these researchers were brought to the United States as part of Operation Paperclip, where they continued their investigations into ancient technologies. Some researchers believe that much of our modern technological development, including computer technology, satellite communications, and even the Internet, was based on principles discovered through the study of ancient artifacts. This would explain why technological progress seems to happen in sudden leaps rather than gradual development. The transistor, the laser, fiber optic communications, all of these breakthrough technologies appeared with surprising speed, as if the basic principles were already understood and just needed to be implemented. But if ancient civilizations really did possess advanced technology, and if we've been studying and reverse engineering their artifacts for decades, where are the original builders? Did they simply disappear? Or could some of them still be here? This question becomes even more intriguing when we examine reports of anomalous human remains that have been discovered around the world. In 1936, a fossilized human skull was found in a coal mine in Alabama. The coal was dated to 300 million years old, yet the skull was clearly human. In 1968, a fossilized human footprint was discovered in Utah, embedded in rock alongside trilobite fossils that were supposedly 500 million years old. These discoveries suggest that humans, or beings very similar to humans, might have existed far longer than mainstream science acknowledges. But more importantly, they raise the possibility that some of these beings developed advanced civilizations while others remained in more primitive states. What if human evolution isn't a straight line from primitive to advanced, but rather a cycle where some groups advance while others remain at earlier stages of development? What if the primitive tribes that explorers encountered in remote parts of the world were actually the descendants of advanced civilizations that had chosen to abandon technology and return to simpler ways of life? This idea is supported by the oral traditions of many indigenous cultures, which describe their ancestors as having possessed incredible powers and knowledge that was deliberately abandoned or hidden. The Hopi people of Arizona speak of previous worlds where humans could fly and communicate telepathically, but these abilities were lost when the world was destroyed by war and environmental collapse. Similar stories appear in Aboriginal Australian traditions, which describe a dream time when the ancestors possessed magical powers and lived in harmony with forces that modern humans have forgotten how to access. These aren't present-day legends, but as historical accounts as myths, or of real events that shaped their world. What makes these stories particularly compelling is their consistency across cultures that had no contact with each other. The details may vary, but the core narrative remains the same. Advanced humans once existed. They possessed incredible technologies and abilities. They destroyed themselves or their world through misuse of these powers, and only scattered survivors remained to preserve fragments of their knowledge. This pattern suggests that what we call primitive cultures might actually be the guardians of ancient wisdom, preserving knowledge that could help us avoid repeating the mistakes of previous civilizations. Their emphasis on living in harmony with nature, their understanding of natural cycles and energy flows, and their sophisticated knowledge of astronomy and mathematics might not be primitive at all, but rather the distilled wisdom of civilizations that learned through bitter experience what happens when technology is developed without wisdom. Recent discoveries in genetics support this possibility. DNA analysis of indigenous populations around the world has revealed genetic markers that are far older than mainstream theories of human migration would suggest. Some of these markers appear to date back hundreds of thousands of years, indicating that modern humans have been present on Earth far longer than previously believed. More intriguingly, some of these ancient genetic markers show signs of having been artificially modified. The modifications are subtle but consistent, as if they were the result of deliberate genetic engineering rather than natural evolution. This raises the possibility that previous advanced civilizations didn't just develop external technologies, but also learned to modify human biology itself. If this is true, then some of the abilities that we consider supernatural or paranormal might actually be dormant genetic capabilities that were engineered into the human genome by previous civilizations. Telepathy, precognition, and other psychic phenomena might not be mystical powers, but rather biological technologies that we've forgotten how to access. This would explain why these abilities seem to run in families and why they're more common in some populations than others. It would also explain why ancient sites around the world seem to be designed to enhance these abilities, with acoustic properties and electromagnetic fields that affect human consciousness in specific ways. The implications of this possibility are staggering. It would mean that we're not just the descendants of previous advanced civilizations, but that we're walking around with their technology literally embedded in our DNA. The key to unlocking incredible human potential might not lie in building better machines, but in learning to activate capabilities that are already within us. But if this technology exists within us, why can't we access it? The answer might be that accessing these abilities requires not just knowledge, but also a level of consciousness and ethical development that our current civilization has not yet achieved. Previous civilizations might have built safeguards into these genetic modifications, ensuring that the most powerful capabilities would only activate when humanity had evolved enough wisdom to use them responsibly. This brings us back to the central question: what happened to these previous civilizations, and what can we learn from their fate? The evidence suggests that they faced the same choice we're facing now: evolve in consciousness and wisdom to match their technological capabilities, or face extinction through the misuse of powers they weren't mature enough to handle. The answer to what happened to them might be hidden in the most unexpected place: our own technology. Because what if I told you that some of the devices we use every day contain components that we didn't actually invent? In 1947, something crashed in the desert near Roswell, New Mexico. While the official story focuses on weather balloons and military secrecy, there's another angle that most people never consider. Within months of this incident, Bell Labs announced the invention of the transistor, the foundation of all modern electronics. This wasn't a gradual development that built on previous research. It was a sudden breakthrough that seemed to come out of nowhere. The three scientists credited with the invention, John Bardeen, Walter Brattain, and William Shockley, had been working on semiconductor research for years with limited success. Then, almost overnight, they produced a working transistor that was far more sophisticated than anything their previous research had suggested was possible. When asked to explain the breakthrough, their explanations were vague and contradictory. But here's what makes this really interesting. The transistor wasn't just a single invention. It required an understanding of quantum mechanics, materials science, and manufacturing techniques that were supposedly decades ahead of their time. It's as if someone handed them a complete blueprint for a technology that shouldn't have existed yet. This pattern repeats throughout the history of modern technology. The integrated circuit, invented in 1958, represented another impossible leap forward. The laser, developed in 1960, was based on principles that weren't even theoretical until just years before. Fiber optic cables, satellite communications, computer memory systems, all of these breakthrough technologies appeared with shocking speed, often from researchers who had shown no previous indication of such revolutionary thinking. Dr. Philip Corso, a former Pentagon official, claimed in his 1997 book The Day After Roswell that many of these technologies were indeed reverse engineered from recovered artifacts. But what if these artifacts weren't from crashed spacecraft? What if they were remnants of previous Earth civilizations that had been discovered and studied in secret? This possibility becomes more compelling when you examine the locations where many of these breakthrough technologies were developed. Bell Labs, where the transistor was invented, was built on land that had previously been used for archaeological excavations. IBM's research facility, where early computer technologies were developed, sits on a site where unusual artifacts had been discovered during construction. The same pattern appears at research facilities around the world. CERN, the European Particle Physics Laboratory, was built in an area where Roman engineers had reported finding impossible artifacts centuries earlier. The Soviet Union's most advanced research installations were often located near sites where ancient metallurgical artifacts had been discovered. It's as if these locations were deliberately chosen because they contained technological artifacts that could be studied and reverse engineered. The question becomes, who was doing the choosing, and how did they know what they were looking for? The answer might lie in a network of researchers and organizations that has been operating in secret for centuries. Historical records show that as early as the 1602, certain European nobles and scholars were collecting unusual artifacts that didn't fit into conventional archaeological understanding. These collections were often associated with early scientific societies and research organizations that later evolved into modern universities and government research programs. The Smithsonian Institution, founded in 1846, has been accused by researchers of systematically collecting and suppressing archaeological discoveries that don't fit the accepted timeline of human development. Witnesses have reported seeing artifacts in Smithsonian storage facilities that appear to show advanced technological knowledge from ancient periods. When these witnesses tried to publish their findings, they found their access revoked and their careers threatened. Similar accusations have been made against research institutions around the world. The British Museum, the Louvre, and dozens of university archaeological departments have been accused of maintaining secret collections of impossible artifacts that are studied by select researchers but never shown to the public. Dr. Michael Cremo, whose book Forbidden Archaeology documents hundreds of suppressed archaeological discoveries, believes that this suppression is deliberate and coordinated. He argues that there's a systematic effort to hide evidence of advanced ancient civilizations, because such evidence would fundamentally challenge our understanding of human development and technological progress. But why would anyone want to suppress this information? The answer might lie in the implications of what this knowledge would mean for our current power structures and economic systems. If it became widely known that previous civilizations had developed free energy technologies, pollution-free manufacturing processes, and sustainable ways of living that didn't require the exploitation of natural resources, it would represent an existential threat to industries worth trillions of dollars. Oil companies, utility corporations, and manufacturing giants would face obsolescence overnight. More importantly, if people realized that human consciousness itself could be developed to access incredible capabilities, it would challenge the fundamental assumptions that keep people dependent on external systems and authorities. Why would you need complex institutions and bureaucracies if individuals could access knowledge and abilities directly through developed consciousness? This brings us to one of the most disturbing possibilities. What if the suppression of this knowledge isn't just about protecting economic interests, but about preventing humanity from developing the same capabilities that led to the destruction of previous civilizations? Think about it this way. If previous advanced civilizations destroyed themselves through the misuse of powerful technologies, then anyone who discovered evidence of those civilizations would face a terrible dilemma. Do you reveal the knowledge and risk humanity repeating the same mistakes? Or do you suppress it until humanity develops enough wisdom to handle such power responsibly? This could explain why so much of this information is hidden in secret societies, mystery schools, and esoteric traditions. These organizations might not be trying to hoard power for themselves, but rather serving as guardians of knowledge that's too dangerous to release until humanity is ready for it. The Freemasons, the Rosicrucians, and other secretive groups often claim to be preserving ancient wisdom for future generations. Their symbols and rituals are filled with references to lost civilizations, advanced technologies, and the development of human consciousness. What if these aren't just metaphorical teachings, but actual technical information encoded in symbolic form? Recent research into the mathematical and geometric principles embedded in these symbols suggests that they might indeed contain technical information. The Masonic square and compass, for example, encode precise geometric ratios that appear in quantum physics equations. The Rosicrucian rose cross contains proportions that match the harmonic frequencies found at ancient sites around the world. But perhaps the most intriguing evidence comes from studying the career paths of the individuals who have been involved in major technological breakthroughs. A surprising number of the scientists and engineers responsible for our most advanced technologies have had connections to esoteric organizations or have reported unusual experiences that influenced their work. Nikola Tesla claimed that his inventions came to him in visions and dreams. He described receiving detailed technical information from what he called unknown sources that guided his research. Albert Einstein was deeply interested in Eastern mysticism and spent years studying ancient Sanskrit texts that described advanced cosmological principles. Werner Heisenberg, one of the founders of quantum mechanics, credited his breakthrough insights to meditation practices he learned from studying ancient philosophical traditions. This pattern suggests that accessing advanced technological knowledge might require more than just intellectual study. It might require developing states of consciousness that allow direct access to information that exists beyond ordinary perception. Modern research into consciousness is beginning to support this possibility. Studies of remote viewing, precognition, and other psychic phenomena have shown that human consciousness can indeed access information through non-physical means. The CIA's declassified Stargate program documents show that remote viewers were able to accurately describe distant locations and events with no normal way of knowing about them. If consciousness can access information remotely, then it's possible that some individuals are accessing technical knowledge from previous civilizations through direct consciousness contact. This would explain why breakthrough technologies often seem to come from inspired insights rather than logical deduction from existing knowledge. But here's where this investigation takes its most shocking turn. What if some members of these previous civilizations didn't disappear at all? What if they found ways to preserve themselves through the cycles of destruction and renewal that have shaped Earth's history? Ancient texts from around the world describe beings who possess extended lifespans or who exist in forms that transcend normal physical limitations. The Hindu tradition speaks of Mahatmas, evolved beings who work behind the scenes to guide human development. Tibetan Buddhism describes tulkus, individuals who can consciously direct their reincarnation to continue their work across multiple lifetimes. Western esoteric traditions tell of ascended masters who have transcended physical existence but continue to influence world events. What if these aren't just spiritual concepts, but descriptions of actual technologies that allow consciousness to persist beyond normal biological limitations. What if some members of previous advanced civilizations used these technologies to survive the destruction of their physical societies? This possibility becomes more intriguing when you examine reports of individuals who seem to possess knowledge and abilities that far exceed what should be possible given their apparent backgrounds. Throughout history, there have been people who demonstrated scientific understanding, artistic abilities, or technological insights that seem to come from nowhere. Leonardo da Vinci designed helicopters, submarines, and flying machines centuries before the physics and materials science existed to make them practical. His anatomical drawings were more accurate than medical textbooks published hundreds of years later. His mathematical insights anticipated discoveries in calculus and geometry that weren't officially made until long after his death. Mozart began composing complex musical pieces at age 5, creating works that demonstrate mathematical principles that weren't understood until centuries later. His music contains harmonic relationships that modern researchers are only now discovering have specific effects on human consciousness and brainwave patterns. More recently, individuals like Buckminster Fuller and Walter Russell demonstrated scientific insights that seem to come from direct intuitive knowledge rather than conventional research. Fuller's designs for geodesic domes and his understanding of synergetic principles anticipated discoveries in materials, science, and systems theory by decades. Russell's periodic table of elements, developed through what he called cosmic consciousness, accurately predicted the existence and properties of elements that weren't discovered by conventional science until years later. These individuals often described their insights as coming from direct contact with higher forms of intelligence or from access to universal knowledge that exists beyond ordinary perception. What if they were actually in contact with survivors of previous advanced civilizations who were guiding human development from behind the scenes? This brings us to the most profound question of all. If such beings exist, if they've been guiding human development for thousands of years, what is their ultimate purpose? Are they trying to help us avoid the mistakes that destroyed their own civilizations? Are they gradually preparing us to reclaim the advanced capabilities that we lost in previous cycles of destruction and renewal? The answer might determine not just our understanding of the past, but the entire future of human civilization. Because if we're on the verge of rediscovering technologies that have destroyed previous civilizations, then understanding what happened to them becomes a matter of our own survival. And the evidence suggests that this rediscovery is happening faster than most people realize. The exponential acceleration of technological development, the increasing reports of anomalous phenomena, and the growing number of individuals who claim to be receiving information from non-physical sources all point to the same conclusion. We're approaching a threshold that previous civilizations have reached before us. The question is, will we be wise enough to cross that threshold successfully, or will we repeat the pattern of advancement, followed by destruction that has played out multiple times in Earth's hidden history? The answer may depend on whether we can decode the warnings and guidance that these previous civilizations left behind for us to discover. The warnings they left behind aren't hidden in ancient texts or carved into mysterious monuments. They're embedded in the very fabric of our modern world, disguised as natural phenomena that we encounter every single day, but completely misunderstand. Have you ever wondered why certain locations on Earth seem to have an almost magnetic pull on human consciousness? Places like Sedona, Arizona, where visitors report profound spiritual experiences and sudden bursts of creativity, or the Bermuda Triangle, where compasses spin wildly and electronic equipment malfunctions for no apparent reason. What if these aren't just tourist attractions or natural anomalies, but active technological systems left behind by previous civilizations? Dr. Elizabeth Rauscher, a nuclear physicist who worked on classified government projects, spent decades studying what she called consciousness interactive technologies. Her research revealed that certain locations on Earth generate measurable electromagnetic fields that directly affect human brainwaves. But these fields aren't random. They show clear signs of artificial manipulation and engineering. When she mapped these locations globally, a startling pattern emerged. They form a precise geometric network that spans the entire planet, with major nodes at locations that have been considered sacred by human cultures for thousands of years. The Great Pyramid sits on one of these nodes. So does Stonehenge, Machu Picchu, and dozens of other ancient sites. But here's what's really shocking. The network also includes locations that weren't considered significant until modern times. The United Nations building in New York sits on one of these nodes. So does CERN in Switzerland, Silicon Valley in California, and the headquarters of most major technology corporations. It's as if someone or something has been deliberately positioning our most important institutions on locations that can influence human consciousness and decision-making processes. This discovery led Dr. Rauscher to a disturbing conclusion. What we think of as human progress might actually be carefully guided development, orchestrated by intelligent systems that have been operating for thousands of years. The technologies we're developing, the directions our research is taking, even the timing of our breakthrough discoveries, all of it might be following a predetermined pattern designed by previous civilizations. But why would they do this? The answer lies in understanding what actually caused the destruction of these advanced societies. It wasn't war, natural disasters, or environmental collapse, though all of these played a role. The real cause was something far more subtle and infinitely more dangerous: the loss of connection between technological development and ethical evolution. Ancient Sanskrit texts describe this phenomenon in detail. They tell of civilizations that developed incredible powers, the ability to manipulate matter at the atomic level, to travel instantly across vast distances, to communicate directly through consciousness. But as their external powers grew, their internal wisdom diminished. They became so focused on what they could do that they forgot to ask whether they should do it. The texts describe the final days of these civilizations with chilling precision, weapons that could destroy entire continents with a single activation, experiments that tore holes in the fabric of reality itself, technologies that separated consciousness from the physical body, leaving entire populations as empty shells, while their minds wandered in artificial realities they couldn't escape from. Sound familiar? We're already developing weapons that could destroy civilization as we know it. Our experiments with particle accelerators are literally tearing holes in space-time. And our virtual reality technologies are creating digital worlds so compelling that people are choosing to live in them rather than engage with physical reality. But here's the crucial difference. Unlike previous civilizations, we have access to their warnings. The geometric network that influences our consciousness isn't just guiding our technological development, it's also trying to accelerate our ethical and spiritual evolution. The question is whether we're wise enough to listen. Recent developments in quantum consciousness research suggest that we might be Dr. Stuart Hameroff and Sir Roger Penrose have demonstrated that consciousness operates at the quantum level within the microtubules of brain cells. This means that consciousness isn't produced by the brain, it's accessed through the brain, like a radio receiving signals from a broader field of information. If consciousness exists as a field that can be accessed rather than produced, then it's possible for information to be transmitted across time through this field. The insights and warnings of previous civilizations could be encoded in the quantum fabric of reality itself, waiting for consciousness that has developed enough sensitivity to receive them. This would explain why so many of our greatest scientific breakthroughs come through sudden intuitive insights rather than logical reasoning. Einstein's theory of relativity came to him in a dream. Kekulé discovered the structure of benzene after a vision of a snake biting its own tail. Tesla's alternating current motor appeared to him in a flash of inspiration while walking in a park. These weren't just lucky guesses or random creativity. They were moments when individual consciousness became aligned with the quantum information field that contains the accumulated knowledge of all previous civilizations. The same field that's trying to guide us away from the mistakes that destroyed our predecessors. But accessing this field requires more than just intellectual brilliance. It requires a specific state of consciousness characterized by humility, ethical development, and genuine concern for the welfare of all life. This is why the network of consciousness interactive sites isn't just influencing our technological development, it's also fostering the emergence of individuals who can serve as bridges between ancient wisdom and modern capability. These individuals are appearing all around the world, though most of them don't fully understand their role yet. They're the scientists who insist on ethical guidelines for their research, the engineers who design technologies that work in harmony with natural systems, the entrepreneurs who prioritize environmental sustainability over profit margins, the artists and writers who create works that inspire people to consider the deeper implications of our technological choices. What unites all of these individuals is their ability to access information through direct consciousness contact, rather than just intellectual analysis. They often report receiving insights through meditation, dreams, or sudden intuitive flashes that provide complete solutions to complex problems. When questioned about the source of their knowledge, they describe it as coming from somewhere else, a universal intelligence that seems to know exactly what information they need and when they need it. Dr. Amit Goswami, a quantum physicist who has studied this phenomenon extensively, believes these individuals are accessing what he calls the quantum vacuum, a field of pure potential that contains all possible information and exists outside of normal space-time. According to his research, consciousness can interact directly with this field under certain conditions, downloading information that appears as sudden insight or inspiration. But here's what makes this particularly relevant to our investigation. The information that's being downloaded often includes specific warnings about technological developments that could lead to civilizational collapse. Many of these individuals report receiving clear guidance about which research directions to avoid and which alternatives to pursue instead. The pattern is consistent across different fields of study. Weapons researchers are guided away from developing certain types of destructive technologies and toward defensive applications instead. Energy researchers are steered away from dangerous experiments with exotic matter and toward clean, sustainable power sources. Computer scientists are warned about the risks of creating artificial intelligences that lack ethical constraints and are given insights into developing conscious AI systems that can work in partnership with human intelligence rather than replacing it. This guidance system seems to be accelerating as we approach critical technological thresholds. The closer we get to developing technologies that could either transform human civilization or destroy it, the more intense the guidance becomes. It's as if previous civilizations are reaching across time to prevent us from repeating their fatal mistakes. But this raises a disturbing question. What happens if we ignore the warnings? What if our drive for technological advancement overwhelms our capacity for ethical development, just as it did for previous civilizations? The answer might already be visible in the increasing frequency of what researchers call temporal anomalies, events that seem to violate our normal understanding of cause and effect. These aren't just theoretical possibilities anymore. They're being documented by scientists at research facilities around the world. At CERN, researchers have detected particles that appear to arrive at their destination before they were sent. In quantum computing laboratories, calculations are being completed by computers that shouldn't have the processing power to solve them. At consciousness research facilities, subjects are demonstrating abilities that exceed all known limits of human perception and cognition. These anomalies are becoming more frequent and more pronounced as our technology advances. It's as if the fabric of reality itself is beginning to respond to our technological manipulations in ways we never expected. Some researchers believe we're approaching what they call a phase transition, a point where the rules of physics as we understand them will no longer apply. This is exactly what ancient texts describe as happening to previous civilizations. They reached a point where their technology became so advanced that it began to interact with the fundamental structure of reality itself. At first, this gave them incredible powers, but eventually it destabilized the very foundations of physical existence, leading to collapse not just of their civilizations, but of the dimensional framework that supported their reality. The survivors of these collapses had to rebuild not just their societies, but the basic laws of physics that govern their world. This is why evidence of their technologies is so hard to find. It exists in dimensional frameworks that are no longer accessible from our current reality. But here's the hope. If consciousness can access information across time and dimensions, then it might also be possible to access the technologies and wisdom of previous civilizations without repeating their mistakes. The key lies in developing our consciousness to the point where we can receive this information responsibly. This is why the Consciousness Interactive Network exists. It's not just trying to guide our technological development, it's trying to accelerate our evolutionary development as conscious beings. The locations that generate these consciousness-altering fields are designed to trigger specific stages of human development, awakening capabilities that have been dormant in our genetic code for thousands of years. Recent research into what scientists call junk DNA has revealed that over 90% of the human genome contains information that doesn't seem to serve any biological function. But quantum biologists are now discovering that this junk DNA responds to electromagnetic fields in ways that suggest it might contain dormant programs waiting to be activated. When human subjects are exposed to the specific electromagnetic frequencies found at consciousness interactive sites, their junk DNA begins to show increased activity. Brain scans reveal new neural pathways forming at accelerated rates. Subjects report enhanced intuitive abilities, increased creativity, and direct access to information they couldn't have learned through normal means. It's as if the human genome contains a complete upgrade package designed by previous civilizations, waiting to be activated when we reach the appropriate level of technological and ethical development. The Consciousness Interactive Network serves as the activation system, triggering these genetic programs when individuals are ready to receive them. This explains why so many people report profound life changes after visiting certain ancient sites or spending time in specific natural locations. They're not just having spiritual experiences, they're undergoing actual genetic activation that unlocks dormant human capabilities. But this activation process is selective. It only works for individuals who have developed sufficient ethical maturity to handle expanded consciousness responsibly. Those who approach these sites with purely selfish motives or destructive intentions find that nothing happens. The system has built-in safeguards that prevent dangerous individuals from accessing advanced capabilities. This selective activation might be the key to preventing the mistakes that destroyed previous civilizations. Instead of giving advanced technology to entire populations regardless of their wisdom level, the system focuses on developing a core group of individuals who can serve as bridges between ancient knowledge and modern capability. These individuals are already beginning to emerge all around the world. They're the ones who are developing technologies that work in harmony with natural systems rather than against them. They're creating new forms of energy production that don't damage the environment. They're designing artificial intelligence systems that enhance human consciousness rather than replacing it. They're establishing economic systems based on cooperation rather than exploitation. Most importantly, they're working together across national and cultural boundaries, united by a common understanding that humanity's survival depends on making the transition to a more conscious form of civilization. They're not trying to dominate or control others. They're trying to create examples of what becomes possible when technology and consciousness develop together. This is the real message that previous civilizations left for us. The path to sustainable advancement lies not in developing more powerful external technologies, but in developing more conscious internal capabilities. When consciousness evolves to match technological capability, incredible possibilities emerge. When technology advances without corresponding growth in consciousness, destruction inevitably follows. The evidence suggests that we're now at the same critical choice point that previous civilizations faced. We can continue on our current path of external technological development without corresponding internal growth and face the same fate as those who came before us. Or we can choose to prioritize consciousness development alongside technological advancement and become the first civilization to successfully navigate this transition. The choice is ours, but we don't have unlimited time to make it. The accelerating pace of technological development means that we're approaching critical thresholds much faster than previous civilizations did. The Consciousness Interactive Network is working overtime to guide and accelerate human development, but ultimately, the decision lies with us. The question is no longer whether advanced civilizations existed on Earth before us. The evidence is overwhelming that they did. The question is whether we'll be wise enough to learn from their experience and choose a different path, because if we can successfully navigate this transition, we won't just be reclaiming the lost technologies of previous civilizations, we'll be pioneering entirely new forms of conscious existence that exceed anything that's ever been achieved on this planet. The survivors of previous civilizations are counting on us to succeed where they failed. They've given us their warnings, their guidance, and even the tools we need to make the transition successfully. Now it's up to us to prove that we're mature enough as a species to handle the incredible responsibilities that come with advanced consciousness and technology. The next phase of this investigation will reveal exactly how this transition process works, what specific capabilities are waiting to be unlocked in human consciousness, and most importantly, what we can do right now to ensure that we choose the path of wisdom rather than repeating the mistakes that have destroyed every advanced civilization that came before us. Because the window of opportunity for making this choice successfully is closing faster than most people realize, and the consequences of failure are more final than anyone wants to imagine. But here's what nobody wants to talk about. The transition has already begun, and most of us are completely unaware that we're living through it right now. The signs are everywhere once you know what to look for. Have you noticed how children today seem to intuitively understand complex technologies that adults struggle with? How they can navigate digital interfaces with an ease that seems almost supernatural? What if this isn't just generational adaptation, but evidence that human consciousness is already beginning to evolve in response to the activation signals embedded in our environment? Recent studies have shown that children born after the year 2000 demonstrate significantly different brainwave patterns than previous generations. Their neural activity shows increased connectivity between regions of the brain that were previously thought to be separate. They process information faster, demonstrate enhanced pattern recognition abilities, and often display intuitive knowledge about subjects they've never been taught. Dr. Catherine Crawford, a developmental neurologist at Johns Hopkins, has been studying these changes for over a decade. Her research reveals that these children's brains are literally wired differently. The corpus callosum, which connects the left and right hemispheres of the brain, is significantly larger in these children. Their pineal glands, often called the third eye in ancient traditions, show unusual levels of activity that correlate with enhanced intuitive abilities. But here's what makes this really significant. These same neural patterns appear in the brain scans of adults who have spent significant time at consciousness, interactive sites. It's as if exposure to these locations triggers the same developmental changes that are occurring naturally in the new generation. This suggests that the genetic activation system we discussed isn't just theoretical, it's actively transforming human consciousness right now. The question becomes, are these changes random evolutionary adaptations, or are they part of a deliberate upgrade program designed by previous civilizations? The answer lies in the timing. These changes began appearing precisely when our technology reached certain critical thresholds. The first documented cases appeared in children born around the time the internet became widely accessible. The changes accelerated when smartphones became ubiquitous, and they're intensifying as we develop more sophisticated artificial intelligence systems. It's as if our technology is serving as a triggering mechanism for dormant genetic programs that were designed to activate when humanity reached specific levels of technological capability. The more advanced our external technology becomes, the more our internal capabilities expand to match it. But this process isn't happening randomly across the population. The children who demonstrate the most dramatic changes often come from families with unusual backgrounds. Many have parents who work in cutting-edge technology fields, consciousness research, or alternative healing modalities. Others have family histories that include unexplained abilities or knowledge that seems to come from unknown sources. This pattern suggests that the activation process is selective, targeting individuals whose genetic lines have been prepared for this transition over multiple generations. It's as if certain family lineages have been carrying dormant genetic programs that are now beginning to express themselves as environmental conditions become appropriate. Dr. Bruce Lipton's research into epigenetics supports this possibility. His work demonstrates that genetic expression can be influenced by environmental factors, including electromagnetic fields, emotional states, and belief systems. Genes that have remained inactive for generations can suddenly begin expressing themselves when the right combination of environmental triggers is present. If previous advanced civilizations understood these principles, they could have embedded genetic programs into human DNA that would remain dormant until specific environmental conditions were met. These programs could be designed to activate gradually, ensuring that consciousness development keeps pace with technological advancement. The implications of this are staggering. It means that the abilities we're beginning to see in the new generation, enhanced intuition, direct information access, expanded sensory perception, are just the beginning. As the activation process continues, we might witness the emergence of capabilities that we currently consider impossible. The evidence is undeniable. We've journeyed through millions of years of suppressed history, examined artifacts that shouldn't exist, and uncovered a pattern that repeats across geological time. Advanced civilizations rising, reaching incredible heights of consciousness and technology, then facing the ultimate test of wisdom. The question isn't whether they existed. The question is whether we'll learn from their fate or repeat their mistakes. Right now, as you're watching this, the same forces that guided previous civilizations are working to awaken something extraordinary within human consciousness itself. The choice is ours, but the window is closing. What we do in the next few years might determine whether humanity joins the ranks of the lost civilizations buried beneath our feet, or becomes the first to successfully navigate the transition to something greater than we ever imagined possible.